masters of speed. This is Formula One.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're from. So we're back. We're at the Red Bull Ring, Austria, for another wet setup, and this is what I've gone with. To start off, we've taken the dry setup that we created way back when. Go and have a look. It is on the channel somewhere, and we've increased the wings by 2. This is an inter setup. If you need a wet setup, increase the wings by 4. So you take the wings from the dry setup and increase them by 2 for an inter setup, increase them by 4. So I've gone up 2 on the front wing from 36 to 38. If it was a wet setup, you go to 40. On the rear wing, I've gone up 2 from 28 to 30. If it was a wet setup, go from 28 to 32. Onto the transmission. The only thing I've changed on the transmission is the on diff. I think it was 75, maybe even 80, and I've taken that down to 30. I've kept the diff off the same. I've kept engine braking the same. I've not changed engine braking simply because since the latest patch, engine braking now aids with brake locking, so I've kept that the same. Not only that, it recharges the battery to the maximum. On the suspension geometry, I've kept it exactly the same as left, left. No changes there. Obviously, you want as less drag on the car as possible, even though it's wet, so we had no toe or camber. On the suspension, and there's only 3 things I've changed in the setup, and it's the roll bars and the ride out. I've kept the front suspension at 41. I've kept the rear suspension at 4. I've changed the front anti-roll bar down from 21 to 14. I've changed the rear anti-roll bar from 19 to 10, and I've increased the ride out simply because you do not want to hit any puddles, because if you hit any puddles, you aquaplane and braking becomes a whole lot harder. Kept the rear ride out the same as well. So yeah, that's the only things I've changed, and I would keep the suspension, everything here exactly the same if it was a wet setup. If it was just a wet setup, I would run everything the same as an inter setup except for the changes to the front wing. There is very little difference at all, if any. On the brakes, I've kept the brakes exactly the same as the dry setup. 98 pressure, 56 bias. There are 2 heavy braking zones into turn 1 and turn 3, but kept everything the same as I usually would. Onto the tyres, and obviously since the latest patch, this has been the updated tyre pressures, and I've kept these exactly the same as well. This has been Austria. I really hope it helps you guys. I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. It's only a short setup, but remember the golden rule: if it's inters, it's +2; if it's wets, it's +4 on the wings, and that should aid you in setting up a decent car for the inters or wet weather. If you need more wings, add more wings. It's your setup. But remember, do all that good stuff. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and guess what? I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.